Hey everybody, Jeremy from the Snowboard Asylum here. Well, I think finally winter is on the horizon and it's time to start getting excited about going snowboarding. If you're anything like us, after a summer of lockdowns and COVID restrictions, the thought of getting back out into the mountains is like really appealing. However, I think we can safely say that winter 2021 is going to be a very different animal to winters that have gone in the past. Now, if you're in the process of thinking about what you're going to do for your holidays this year and where you're going to go and how you're going to get there, I'd say now's the time to really kind of give some thoughts to changing how you get out to the mountains. So, what we've really decided to do this year is just put together a video for people that have never really thought about driving out to the Alps. I guess this winter is probably the winter to really make that call and think about getting out there in your car. There's so many advantages to driving out to the mountains. Those aren't only just cost, but they're also really being in charge of your own destiny. And at this moment, that's kind of a really important thing to think about. Let's kind of just really talk about the cost of driving out, because I suspect that puts a lot of people off. But the reality is, once you've crossed the channel, it is relatively inexpensive. If you work out how much flights are and then you put in all the extras on top of that, that's not cheap at all. So, you know, you've got your flight costs, you've got parking costs, you've got luggage costs, you've got equipment costs. You've now got seating allocation costs as well. And when you add all those together, it's pretty pricey, especially if you're going over in a family group of 4 or so. Now, the big advantage of doing it in your car, once you've got your ferry crossings, your fuel costs and your tolls if you need to go those routes, that's really your only cost. And generally, they don't come anywhere near the price of flying. The beauty of having your own car as well out in the mountains is it gives you options, and it's those options that really can make a difference between having a good holiday and having a great holiday. You're not stuck in one resort. There's so many times, especially in a lot of the valleys in the Alps, where you can get such massive snow variations between resorts that are pretty close. If you have the unfortunate luck that you hit the resort that has no snow and you're on a package tour and you've flown in and caught a transfer bus, you're not really going to have much choice to get out of that resort. If you've got your car, you can drive down the next valley and have a great day snowboarding. We've got a really good example of that once when we were in Meyerhofen. So we ended up in Meyerhofen on a bank holiday, went to the lift station, and it was absolutely heaving. It was like 45 minutes just to get the chairlift up to the top of the mountain. So basically what we did, we turned around and hoofed it down to a little resort a bit further down the valley. Surprisingly, we got there was 3 cars in the car park. We ended up having one of the best powder days that we've ever had. There's a little bit of a video that will follow this just to kind of show you. We couldn't have accessed that if we didn't have a vehicle. Having a vehicle also gives you options in terms of having you stay there. If you're on a package and you're leaving early in the morning, it could snow overnight and you have to catch that bus at 6 a.m. Whereas if you drive in, you can delay your departure, have a great day on the snow, which could potentially be one of your best riding days ever. So you've got options with driving. Now, the thing is, a lot of people are put off thinking it's complex and difficult to do. So we've decided to put a video together that's just kind of going to run through all the things you need to be wary of when you're driving out the Alps. So we'll take a look at what you need for your vehicle. We'll take a look at the documents that you're going to need. And we'll also show you routes that you can take to both Austria and the French Alps. We're not going to do Italy or Switzerland, just because I kind of not got that much experience of driving to those 2 areas. But a lot of the routes that you're going to take to Austria and to France are the same routes that you would go to Switzerland. So hopefully, if you're going to those destinations, you'll be able to take something out of this as well. So I guess it's not going to be the most exciting of videos, so if you're watching this for entertainment reasons, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed and you'll give us a thumbs down in the comments section. But hopefully, if you are planning making that journey, it's going to give you some ideas, hopefully ease any worries that you have about it, and show just how simple and easy it is to drive to the Alps. So in this first part of the video, what I'm going to do is just kind of run through some of the things that you're going to require to travel across continental Europe, kind of some of the documents that you're going to need, some of the paperwork, and also what the legal requirements are for journeys across Europe as well. So the first thing to kind of mention on this, I'm recording this in September, so not really sure what's going to happen with our participation in the EU, but as things look, it's not looking promising. So I'm just going to really kind of do this as though that we're going to have a hard Brexit, because that is going to kind of make some changes to the documentation that you need. So really the first thing that you're going to need if you're planning on traveling across Europe, this is really post the 31st of December, so this is kind of running into January 2021, is that you are going to need an insurance green card. You can pick one of those up from your insurance company. Just let them know that you're going to be traveling across Europe, and they will send you a green card. You need to have the actual original document with you. Has to be on green paper as well, or it's invalid. You can't take a photocopy of it. So first things first, just make sure you've got your green card so that your vehicle's insurance. The next thing you're going to need post-Brexit is one of these, which is an international driving license. These are super easy to get. All you need to do is go to your local post office. It obviously needs to be a larger post office. You need a passport photo and your original driving license. They're super cheap. They're about £5.50. It lasts 3 years, so you're going to get some use out of it as well. You're going to need this to drive across Europe. Okay, what you're also going to need as well is you're going to want a copy of your V5 in the car. You're going to want your insurance certificate as well. And you need those just for kind of proof of ownership and to prove that the car is insured as well, other than the green card. Right, so that's kind of the main documentation that you're going to need. I would also recommend to get European breakdown cover as well. I've broken down a couple of times in Europe. I did one breakdown with no cover and a breakdown with cover. It was chalk and cheese. It's definitely worth having. You can probably upgrade your insurances that you get with credit cards and so on and so forth to cover that at a little bit extra cost, or you can purchase it direct from the AARAC. But I would say it's definitely worth having that cover. Right, so for your vehicle, there are some things that you're going to need to put in there just to bring your car up to standards for European travel. You can buy those things as a kit from Halfords, or you can buy them separate online or via a local motor spares shop. But I'm just going to kind of run through them what you need. So first and foremost, a warning triangle. Every country in Europe, you need one of those, so make sure you've got one of those. Secondly, you're going to need reflective jackets. Reflective jackets need to be for every passenger in the car, and they need to be kept in the cabin, not in the boot. So you need that. What you also need is a headlamp beam adjuster. You can pick them up from Halfords. They just stick on the headlights of your car. They're super easy to do. You're going to need replacement bulbs. Not law in every country in Europe, but definitely worthwhile having. You're also going to need a GB sticker as well. So if you don't have a GB number plate, make sure you've got a GB sticker. And that especially after the 31st of December as well. I'm pretty sure that the police in Central Europe will be pretty much on it. So just make sure you've kind of got that. First aid kit as well. Again, not law in a lot of countries, but definitely worth having. Just a good first aid kit from Halfords that fits in the car will do the job perfectly as well. Now, What I always recommend as well, especially if you're going into the mountains, snow chains or the likes of. Personally, I don't use snow chains. I use auto socks. These really just slip over the wheel and they have so much grip, you will be surprised. These have got me out of a lot of sticky situations over the years. So really, really worth the investment. I kind of keep these in the vehicle all the time. I have used them in the UK a couple of times as well. They're not like snow chains. All you do is you just tuck one side on, roll the wheel and just tuck it in as you go on. It takes a few minutes to put on. They are a legal requirement in a lot of mountainous regions. You won't be allowed to drive up a lot of mountain roads in France and in Austria if you don't have them. So I would really recommend getting a set of those. Like I say, I would go for blankets over chains. Chains are a bit of a nightmare to put on, especially if it's snowing, blowing a gale, and you haven't done it before. It's a bit of a pain, where these are, again, super easy to do. Now, if you kind of go into France and Germany, there is legislation in France and Germany now that you need emission stickers if you're going into some of the bigger cities. If you're just passing through, you generally don't need them, so it's not something to be overly concerned about. However, if you are going to make some excursions to cities, you can pick them up. They're pretty easy to get. You can just Google it online. You just Google it and it'll come up. So let me see where the addresses you need to go for. For Germany, if you go to berlin.de, there is a section on there that allows you to order the sticker for Germany. For France, you just go onto the French government website and you can order from there as well. They're not expensive. The German one is €6. The French one is €4.50. So it's super easy to get hold of. Right. Now, the one thing that really is worth talking about if you're going to travel across Europe is tyres. In France, snow tyres or all-weather tyres aren't a legal requirement, but when you get into the mountain regions, it's recommended that you have chains or tyre blankets. However, Austria and Germany are a little bit different. Germany requires in winter that you have all-weather tyres or winter tyres, where Austria requires winter tyres full stop, which is kind of pretty obvious being as it's a mountainous region. If you've not had winter tyres before, it does make a pretty big difference to how your car drives. I kind of generally use winter tyres in winter in the UK and kind of find out that I do get a lot better grip in icy and snowy conditions. I'm kind of up to Scotland quite a lot as well, so driving in snow a fair bit when there is snow. And it does make a huge difference. Now, if you're driving across Europe and you get caught in a snowstorm, it's pretty frightening driving down a German autobahn with summer tyres in freezing conditions and heavy snow. I'd say it's worth investing in a set of winter tyres. They don't cost a fortune. If you go to a lot of the bigger online tyre retailers, you can pick up a set of winter tyres at a very good price. And like I say, it does make a difference. But just watch out for that. Make sure you have got the right tyres if you're doing that journey. So that's really it in terms of the things you're going to need for the journey. Just a little bit of preparation. You can go onto either the RAC website or the AA website, and they're going to have like checklists of what you need to have in your vehicle. Just go through that. It's not a massive amount of stuff, and like I say, you can pick them up as kits that give you everything that you need. So that's really that bit. The next part of the video we're going to look at is we're going to start to kind of bring in some maps and kind of just show you the different routes to take to get to the mountains, really. So on this next part of the video, what we're going to do is start getting down to planning the route and looking at the alternatives for getting out to the mountains. The first thing we're going to do is really just concentrate on getting across the channel first of all. this is a relatively short section. We're going to switch to the computer just to kind of give you a little bit more info off the websites. But it's not that complicated. You've only got 2 means of getting across the channel nowadays. It's 2020, so the hovercraft doesn't exist anymore. So you really only got the ferry or the tunnel as your options of crossing the channel. As you'll see from this first section, there are some little tricks that you can play by mixing and matching, but we'll kind of go to the video now and you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. So let's jump straight into the computer and take a look at some of the ways you can cross the channel. Now, as I said in the intro, I personally really like to mix and match my crossings between the tunnel and the ferry. And the reason I do that is it just kind of gives me some options in terms of travel. And I'll run through the kind of options you have for tickets on the computer screen between the tunnel and the ferry. And it will just give you a better understanding of why I do that. So generally on my outbound journeys, I always tend to go the tunnel. And the reason I do that is just because I've had like a short journey at the front of it, and I just want to get across the channel as quick as I can and kind of get on my way. You're generally going to save probably about an hour or so by using the tunnel over the ferry. And at certain times of day, that hour can be critical. It means that you can just get past some population centres in the morning before rush hour, and that's going to save you a fair amount of time. But to be honest with you, if you prefer one way or the other, it doesn't really matter. You can go tunnel both ways, you can go ferry both ways, that's fine. But there are some real distinct advantages and financial advantages for doing a mix and match on it. So let's kind of jump into the tunnel website first of all, and just kind of go through ticket options. On that outbound journey, there really aren't that much differences in pricing between the tunnel and the ferry. So as I said, I just like to get this out of the way and done. So if you're traveling at a relatively reasonable time, you're really going to pay between about £100 and 90 odd pounds. So you can see there to get across the channel. If you're doing an overnighter, it's probably worthwhile picking up one of those lower prices at £76. That's really kind of the going rate for cross-channel. Right now, the real downside of the tunnel on the return journey, though, is I really like that flexibility when I'm out in the mountain, because there's nothing worse than going on a package deal and you're catching a bus at 6 o'clock and at 4 o'clock on Friday evening it starts to dump and you're driving home on one of the best powder days of the year. Having your own vehicle out in the resort is going to give you flexibility. If that scenario happens, you can just have a day on the hill and just change your journey to drive home at night. So for me, that's why I always like flexibility on the return journey. Now, the real downside with booking a flexible return on the tunnel is it's expensive. As you can see here, the price jumps up from £92 for the standard crossing, but it jumps up to £229 for a return with flexibility. Whereas if you then switch to the ferry option, fully flexi fare is coming in at £129. Yeah, the dates are a little bit different here, and the only reason I've done that is because the ferries won't let you book in as far ahead as January when I'm recording this video, so I kind of went as late as I could. But this pricing really doesn't change that much between December and January anyway, so it's going to be, you know, roughly kind of the same. But as you can see here, booking a fully flexi, you're going to save £100 coming back on the ferry. And personally, after I've done a long blast through Europe, it is quite nice to kind of get on a ferry, sit down, have something to eat, and have a little bit of a rest. So not only does it save £100, but I kind of personally prefer it because it just kind of sets you up and relaxes you a little bit more for that final leg home. So when you're booking your crossings, don't be afraid to mix and match with tunnel and ferry, because it's going to save you a lot of money, but it's also going to give you a lot more convenience to adjust your holiday when you're away. So that's really kind of the ferries. It's kind of pretty simple booking those. The only thing you're going to remember is by the time your trip comes around, we're probably going to be out of the EU, so you're probably going to have to fill in a passenger form before you go away. You have to do that now on the tunnel, but you don't generally do it on ferries, but I suspect that will probably change between now and when the season kicks in. So, yeah, like I said, don't be afraid to mix and match these crossings. So now we've got the ferries booked, we need to really start to think about looking at different routes to get out to the mountains. The way we've done this next section, and again it's kind of reverting back to the video so you can actually kind of see the routes in real time when we talk about them. The first section is really going to be aimed towards driving to Austria. That section has like 3 separate sections because you've got 3 very distinctive routes if you want to drive out to Austria. And the reason I've done 3 routes is it kind of really depends how you want to do this journey. I know over the years I've changed how I do that journey. I remember years ago, back when we were in our 20s, we would just roll up to the ferry at 7 o'clock at night, get straight over and really just kind of blast it through the night to get to the resort for first lift the following day. Kind of into my 30s and 40s, that kind of changed somewhat and was really based around getting the ferry at 6 o'clock in the morning and doing the drive through the day. Now I'm in my 50s, it's changed again, and I like to kind of get to the ferry at kind of midday, just do like a nice leisurely drive through the first part of the journey, stay somewhere nice overnight, get something to eat, and then do the final leg of the journey the following day and get to the resort for midday and get an afternoon's riding in. So there are variations how you can do this journey. So when we do this first route, it's based around getting there quickly, having a more scenic route, or having a more kind of leisurely route is probably the easiest way to describe it. I hope it makes sense when you kind of look through them. So once we've done Austria, we're then going to really kind of look at routes to France. Now, France is a lot simpler than getting to Austria because in reality there's only one real route that you can use there. You can use the A roads, but as I say in the video, I've not really got that much experience of doing that route. I've done it once and it seemed to take a long time, so I kind of never did it again. But it's a pretty straightforward rundown to France. In fact, the reality is it's the easiest journey of them all. So if you holiday in France, it really doesn't take long to drive to the mountains at all, as you'll see when we do the video presentation. So I hope you get something from this little bit. It's a bit kind of long-winded, especially on some of the journeys, because they are a little bit complicated in places, but hopefully we'll make it pretty easy to understand the routes and the way to go. So we'll see you on the other side of this video section. Okay, so let's dive straight into the different routes that we can use to get to Austria. So the first route we're going to look at is the route that I call the top route. Now, on this route, I've just started it at Calais and I finished it at Rosenheim, just south of Munich. And the reason I finished it at Rosenheim is that's where the motorway splits depending on which part of the Alps you're going to go. You can carry straight on to head you towards the Salzburg side of the Alps, or you turn right down to head towards the Innsbruck side. To be honest with you, I suspect most of you will probably take that right fork because that's where kind of the majority of the more well-known resorts are. But I'll kind of run through that in a little bit more detail when I get to the end. Okay, so this route, I like to use this route as the route that I take if I want to get the journey out the way quickly. If I'm doing it all in one single day or I'm doing it overnighter, this is generally the route that I'll take. And the reason I do that is because this is the route that drops you into Germany a lot earlier on in the journey. So the big advantage that has is that once you hit that German motorway network, a lot of that motorway network has no speed limits, so you can make up a lot of time very quickly on that route. So if you're kind of doing this overnight when the roads are empty, it's a really good way to cover a lot of distance in a relatively short time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just zoom in on this route and just kind of talk you through pretty much the signage that you're looking for to give you the right direction, and just kind of give you the heads up for any kind of areas that you just need to be a little bit wary of in the journey. So let's kind of start at Calais. So you're really just going to come off the ferry terminals or the tunnel, and you're going to drop straight on the A16 and you're going to head towards Dunkirk. Now this is a free to use motorway, so there are no tolls on this. To be honest with you, there are no tolls all the way on this journey until you get to Austria, where you need a vignette. But again, I'll kind of talk about that in a little bit more detail when we get to Austria. So follow the signs for Dunkirk. If you're on the Dover to Dunkirk ferry, again, you're just going to come off the ferry terminal, and again, you're going to get on the A16. The only difference being is you're going to follow the signs for Ostend. Now, once you've got to Dunkirk, again, you're going to follow the signs for Ostend as well. So once you're kind of just north of Dunkirk, that's when you pass into Belgium. So as you can see, from Calais to Dunkirk, you're like half an hour or so before you're into Belgium. Once you've crossed into Belgium, this journey is really simple, because all you're doing is just following the signs for Brussels, and it's one road. It's just the E40 that takes you all the way through to Brussels. Now, Brussels is just the area that you just want to be a little bit wary of first off. I always try to hit Brussels pre-7 o'clock. And the reason I do that is, as you can see, that the outer motorway network runs very close to the city centre. So if you hit this at rush hour, it can get a little bit busy. I always find if I'm kind of coming around this area, like between 6:30 and 7, it's pretty deserted, and it's a straightforward run through. So really all you're doing is you're just coming down the E40, and then you're going to pick up the E19 and follow the signposts for the E40 again. So it's pretty straightforward. When you're on this E19, again, if you just look for the signposts for Liège, it's going to take you directly there back onto the E40. There are a couple of intersections on here, but they're pretty straightforward if you're just watching for that signage. So make sure you're just awake and you're looking for that Liège signage. Okay, so once you're clear of Brussels, E40 all the way down to Liège. This, again, is a relatively empty stretch of road. You shouldn't really encounter that much traffic when you get here. Okay, then when we get to Liège, there has been motorway works here for a while. I'm pretty sure they're clear now. But when you're kind of coming towards Liège, you really then want to be following the signposts for Aachen. It's clearly signpost, so you can't really go wrong anywhere on that first part of the journey. Now, it's when you get into Aachen, this is where you cross into the German border. So you're now then starting to access the German motorway network. There was roadworks for a good few years on this section here. So a lot of this now is brand new motorway. So it's very easy to make up a lot of time. So from Aachen, you're then following the signposts to Kerpen. Kerpen, a bit of information, is the home of Michael Schumacher. Then from Kerpen, you're then following to Cologne, and then you're going to bypass Bonn. And at this point, you want to be looking for signposts for Frankfurt. It's very clearly marked. Now, a lot of this section down here is also speed limit free. So you can make up a lot of time in this section here. I will say, though, just watch out for the areas that do have speed restrictions on them, and make sure that you adhere to the speed restrictions. They are policed quite heavily, and German police are quite scary. So really try not to get kind of pulled over. So just stick to the rules when you're running through there. Okay, so this motorway is now then going to take you past Frankfurt. Now, although you're running through a relatively big population centre here, this never overly gets that busy. So it's normally a pretty straightforward, clear run through there. And then the same through these sections as well. So from Frankfurt, you're just aiming for Würzburg, and then from Würzburg to Nuremberg. Again, I've never kind of really run into that much congestion on any of these sections. From Nuremberg, then you're going down to Ingolstadt, and then from Ingolstadt to Munich. Now, in terms of the whole journey, this is probably the place you just need to be the most aware of. And that's really down to what time you hit it. Munich Ring Road can get very, very busy. So you really want to aim at kind of getting through this probably by about 4 p.m. in the afternoon. If you hit it about 4 p.m, you should have a relatively straightforward run around the city ring road. If you hit it any later, you might start to drop into traffic, especially in this section, can get very heavy. So really just watch your timings and just aim to be kind of hitting there before 4 p.m. if you can. When you're on this bypass network here, you really want to just be looking for signs for Innsbruck and Salzburg. It's signposted very clearly, so you shouldn't make mistakes. However, there are a few weird intersections on this, so you can make a few errors. But if you do, don't worry, because the road network around Munich is pretty straightforward. All that's going to happen is you're going to come off on one of these intersections and you're going to end up on either the outer or the inner ring road. If you do, again, just try and pick up those signs for Salzburg, Innsbruck, and you'll just kind of sail right the way through. And you might also get to see a little bit of Munich, so don't panic too much if you do go wrong there, because like I say, it is signposted pretty well from that point. Right, once you're clear of Munich, it is a pretty straightforward run down to that change point. Now, if you look at this, the map here takes you off to Rosenheim. We're not going up there. That's just there for information. It's this point here where the motorway divides. So if you're kind of heading towards more the Salzburg side of the Alps, you're just going to stay on this same motorway, and that's just going to run to Salzburg, and it's going to give you access to all those resorts on the other side of Salzburg. Now, if you're heading down towards the Innsbruck side, you're just going to hit a right-hand filter here, and you're just going to hit this motorway. It's signposted so clearly that you can't really make any errors here. I suspect most of you will probably be heading down this right fork, because that's where the bulk of the resorts are around Austria. As you can see from here, you've got Outback, you've got Sol, you've got Elmau, you've got Zell am See, you've got Meyerhofen, you've got Finkenberg, you've got Hintertux, you've got Stubai. There's so many resorts around this section, so I suspect most of you are going to peel off onto this section here. Right, the one bit of thing you need to know about Austrian motorways is that you need a vignette to use Austrian motorways. If you don't have one, you will be fined. There are automatic vignette readers everywhere on the motorway network in Austria, so make sure you pick one up. A vignette you buy for 7 days or 14 days or any length of time after that. They're not expensive. I think they're about 10 to 12 euros for 7 days. So there really is no excuse for not having one. If you don't get one, as I say, it's a pretty hefty fine. Now, you pick those vignettes up from service stations once you're past Munich. They'll have like a little sign that has like an Austrian logo with 2 red kind of motorway signs. That's the vignette sign. What I would recommend, there's a few services around this section of motorway after Munich. I'd say stop early and pick one up. You just get them from the petrol kiosk. They'll have a big sign there saying that they do them. And like I say, generally if you're there for a week, get a 7-day vignette. What I would avoid is the services at Urschenberg. You might get lured into this services by the sign of a site of a McDonald's, but that services gets very busy. So if you're trying to do a bit of social distancing, that ain't going to happen in Urschenberg services. You can also pick them up. There is a petrol station down on the Innsbruck side just before the border. It's actually literally right on the border. That never gets overly busy, so you can pick one up from there. If you're going down on the Salzburg side, again, there's a few services on that route that you can pick up from there as well. So yeah, they're pretty easy to get hold of. Right, for this whole journey, there are plenty of petrol stations, so fueling up shouldn't be an issue on this journey. What I will say to you though, if you want to go to toilet, especially in Germany, you're going to have to pay for the pleasure. So just make sure you've got plenty of euro coins with you for the journey, or it ain't going to happen. So that is the top journey. Like I say, if you want to get this out of the way quickly, you want to do it overnight without a stay, this is probably the route to go, because you can make up time and cover long distances in a relatively short period. So the next one we're going to look at is the middle route. So the middle route. Now this route for me is my personal favourite. It's the route that I've done most over the past 35 years. It has some distinct advantages over both the top and the bottom routes, and the main one of those is it's just a little bit more scenic. Now, when you've done these journeys so many times, just sitting on a German autobahn or a French autoroute gets a little bit tedious. Now, the middle route just really does take you through some of the most beautiful scenery in Europe, so I just kind of prefer it for that reason mainly. Timing wise, overall it doesn't actually take that much longer than going the other routes, but it is just a little bit more complicated in terms of the journey, because you're kind of changing motorways a little bit more, so the route just is a bit more complex. But if you're giving yourself a little bit more time for this journey, I highly recommend going this route, just because it is so scenic. There are also some other pretty big advantages on this route. The main one of those is that you actually get to go through Luxembourg. Why that's important? Because things are very cheap in Luxembourg. They have a different tax regime to the rest of Europe. So if you want to fuel up your vehicle, it's going to cost you a fraction of what it would cost going a lot of the other routes. And in terms of the saving is that substantial that it actually is sometimes worthwhile to kind of just detour through Luxembourg to take advantage of that. You can also buy other luxury goods and other stuff as well while you're there, and pretty much all the service stations in Luxembourg have that facility. They have like big shops because a lot of people take advantage of that. So that is a consideration that's definitely worth looking at when you're planning routes. Now, the kind of one downside about this route is that it does take you through some areas that you can get caught up in some hefty traffic. And that, again, is primarily around Luxembourg. So, again, it's just one of those things, the same with like the top routes, is just be aware of what kind of times you're going to hit Luxembourg, because you don't want to get caught up in traffic. I estimate it's probably about 5 and a bit hours from Calais to well, probably less than that, 4.5 hours to Luxembourg from Calais. So when you're planning your journey, just bear that in mind. You don't want to be hitting there at rush hour. Now, as with the other journeys, I'm just going to run you through the route and just kind of talk you through the areas that you're aiming for, just to make the journey simple. As with the top route, this route is toll-free until you get to Austria as well, so you're not going to have to fork out road tolls. Like I said, if you want to kind of make a little bit more of a journey, split it over a couple of days, this is really a nice route to do, just because it does take you through some interesting scenery. So let's kick off with the start. So pretty much the same as with the top route. When you come off the ferry or the tunnel at Calais or at Dunkirk, you're just going to pick up the A16. However, on this journey, when you get to Dunkirk, you are going to come off the A16 and you're going to follow the signposts for Lille. This is a pretty short bit of journey. I would say try to avoid hitting Lille at morning rush hour because it does get a little bit busy. To be honest with you, I've been through there a fair few times at rush hour, and it doesn't come to a standstill. The traffic does move, so it's not that crucial as it would be, say, hitting Brussels. It doesn't get that busy. But, you know, if you want a clear, easy journey, just be wary of that. What I will say, when you get to Lille, there is a kind of couple of motorway changes when you get there, so just be wary of that. As you drive through the centre of Lille, you want to be following the motorway signs to Tournai. So that's Tournai, Tournai. So if you pick up the signs for Tournai, you're going to come through the middle of Lille relatively easily. Now, so once you've just kind of followed that through and come out of Lille, follow the signs for Tournai, and then you are looking to pick up the signs for Mons, M-O-N-S. This is all a pretty straightforward road. Road quality's all right through there. It just kind of, you just need to have your eyes open because there's kind of a few changes on there, especially as you come from Tournai onto Mons. You kind of go over an elevated section. There is a really weird dip in that road that can catch you out. So just watch your speed and just be aware of that section there. It seems a little strange thing to talk about, but, you know, when you drive in a van full of snowboards, it does buck you quite hard and can catch you out if you're not aware of it. So you're then going to run through all the middle of Mons. And when you're in Mons, you are then looking to pick up the signs for Charleroi. This is where this journey starts to get quite nice in terms of like scenery. So you're going to bypass Charleroi on the E42 or the E420 and head towards Namur. So N-A-M-U-R. When you get to Namur, you're then going to pick up the E411. And that's going to take you down towards Luxembourg. Now, the beauty of this is it's very scenic as this passes through the Ardennes forest. So this is a really nice part of the journey. It's motorway, it's quick, it's you're going to kind of cover a lot of distance quite quickly on this. And then you're going to hit Luxembourg. This is where it kind of gets a little bit complex in Luxembourg. So just kind of have your wits about you. The easiest way to describe your journey in here is if you follow the signs for Bettemberg, you can't really go wrong on this. I would say here as well, there's a lot of petrol stations. So make sure you fill up here. In fact, what I would say for this whole journey, don't fill up between Calais and Luxembourg if you don't have to. Fuel is considerably cheaper here, so it's worth saving that and topping up when you get to Luxembourg. Okay, so once you've kind of got to Bettemberg, you are then picking up the signs for Saarlouis, S-A-A-R-L-O-U-I-S. That's a pretty straightforward road. It takes you up and through the hills. So you're then aiming for Saarlouis. You're then from Saarlouis aiming for Saarbrücken. From Saarbrücken, you're then going to follow the motorway to Zweibrücken. And then from Zweibrücken, you're going to follow the motorway to Pirmasens. Right, this sounds all really kind of complicated, but it's not. All these places are signposted really clearly. So it's very difficult to go wrong on this. Right, from Zweibrücken, you are then heading to Pirmasens. Right, now this is a little bit that you just want to be a bit wary of because your satellite, if you've put this into a sat nav to get to Austria, the sat nav will send you in a weird way here. Generally what a sat nav will try and do is will try and send you all the way up here to Kaiserslautern and then across to Mannheim, which is probably 100 miles out of the way, really, because all you need to do when you get to Pirmasens is just come down this road to Landau. Now this is an A road and it actually takes you through some of the most dramatic scenery that there is in Europe. This is like very forested with big sandstone towers with monasteries on the top of the towers. It is very scenic. What I will say is if you're going to split this journey in half, this is the area to stay at around between Pirmasens and Landau. We always kind of stay round about Wildgartsweissen. There's a really good restaurant, steak bar, hotel there called the Hotel Restaurant Steakhouse Brunnerhof. And that's in Wildgartsweissen. You're generally looking about £120 for a family room for there. It does pretty good food. And it really is almost dead central in this journey. So it's probably going to take you about five and a half hours to get there from Calais. So if you are looking to split the journey up, this is a really good place to do that. Okay, so once you've got to Wildgartsen, you're then heading towards Landau. And so basically this whole section here is the A road. And like I say, it's super scenic. It actually takes you down to the whole Mosel Valley. So there's a whole load of wine production around here. Okay, once you get to Landau, you're then following the signs to Karlsruhe. Again, this is a pretty straightforward, super quick bit of motorway. It's all very clear. From Karlsruhe, you are then picking up the motorway to Pforzheim. Then from Pforzheim, you're heading to Stuttgart. So again, you're now on the super fast German Autobahn here. So as with that top route, a lot of this section has no speed limits. So you can cover a lot of distance in a relatively quick time. Now, as with other major population centres, just watch traffic around Stuttgart. It can get very, very busy around that area. So just be aware of what time you're going to hit Stuttgart. Okay, from Stuttgart, it's a pretty straightforward blast down to Munich. It's all signposted really well as well. What I will say here, and I'm going to come back to this once we've kind of gone past Munich, depending whereabouts in Austria you're going, you can come off at Ulm, and that's going to take you to a different side of the Austrian Alps. But I'll kind of run through the standard bit and then we'll kind of come back to this. So from Ulm, as I say, you're just kind of running straight through to Munich. Now, as with the top route, Munich is the area that you want to just be a little bit wary of. Traffic can get very bad around Munich, especially at rush hours. So I would say if you can, just try and avoid hitting this at rush hour because it might slow your journey down quite considerably. Once you've got past Munich, then, as with the top route, you're back onto the same motorway down to Rosenheim, where you've got the split between the Salzburg and the Innsbruck side. As with this section here, again, once you've come out of Munich, think about stopping to pick up your vignette for Austrian roads. It's really important that you get a vignette if you're using Austrian motorways. There is a big fine if you get caught without a vignette. So really prioritise stopping and getting that. So once you've got your vignette, you're going to run all the way down to where the motorway splits. And that is basically just at Rosenheim. I don't know why this gap's not filling in because it is actually a link. If I zoom close in, you'll see it. Okay, so at this split here, if you're kind of heading to those resorts on the Salzburg side of Austria, you're just going to carry straight on down the motorway past Lake Chiemsee towards Salzburg. However, for most of kind of the more well-known resorts in Austria, you are going to fork onto the right down the 93, and that's going to head you towards Innsbruck. It's signed super clearly. You can't go wrong. Now, once you've done there, this is then going to give you access to pretty much some of the most famous Austrian ski resorts. As you can see, you've got the Zillertal Valley. You've got, you know, pretty much all the main Tyrol ski resorts are in this area here. So I would suspect the majority of you are going to come down this section here. Also, just watch your speed limits in Austria. It's not like Germany that's open. They are really kind of heavily enforced, especially on this section here as well, because there's a lot of anti-pollution speed limits in force in this area. So let's just jump back to this turn-off at Ulm. If you're heading out to the Arlberg side of Austria, so resorts like St. Anton, Lech, Zers, Solden, Obergurgl, Kanntal, you really don't want to be heading down to Munich. That's just going to add a whole load onto your journey. So if you're heading to those resorts, when you kind of head towards Ulm after Stuttgart, you really want to be looking to coming off the motorway there. It's pretty well signposted for Kempten, so just keep your eyes open for that. So basically, the motorway is going to take you right through the middle of Ulm. Traffic generally runs pretty free through there, so it's never really that much of an issue. And then you're going to just stay on the Autobahn all the way through to Kempten. That's a pretty fast stretch of road, so you can kind of cover that journey pretty quickly. However, when you get to Kempten, that motorway is then going to stop and turn into an A road. Now, without a doubt, this really is one of the most scenic routes through the Alps. So although it's maybe a little bit of a grind because you're on A roads, it's worth it purely and simply just because the view is so good. So when you've come through Kempten, you want to be then following the signs for the Fern Pass. That's signposted pretty much very clearly from Kempten. But the reality is it's just one road anyway. So from Kempten, you want to be going over the Fern Pass. It's probably going to take you about an hour or so to get from Kempten and get over the pass. So it takes a little bit of time, so just be prepared for that. Now, although the Fern Pass is an A road, it is pretty all right in terms of the amount of traffic that flows through there and the type of road. So you're not going over a pass that's in the middle of nowhere and fully exposed. It is actually a major thoroughfare, so they do kind of keep that pass pretty clear and pretty much snow free if that allows. So don't fret too much about having to go over there. It's not like going over some back road pass in the French Alps. This is like a major route with a lot of commercial traffic going through it, so it is kept clear. So once you've gone over the Fern Pass, you are then aiming towards a little town called Imst, so IMST, and when you get to Imst, that's pretty much where you pick up the motorway again, and that's just going to deliver you to whichever resort you want to go to. You're just going to turn off the A12, either towards the Arlberg region or off down into the more wild Spitz region of Austria, where you're going to get the resorts like Solden and so on and so forth. So it is quite a scenic route to do. On this route as well, the easiest place to pick up your vignette is when the road runs down from the Fern Pass. When you get to the bottom of the Fern Pass on the Austrian side, there is a big petrol station on the right hand side. You can stop there. That's a really good place to pick up your vignette. It's never overly that busy as well, so you're going to be able to keep your distance as well. So those two routes really kind of finish off the middle route. So let's move to the bottom route. So let's jump straight into this bottom route. Now the bottom route has one real distinct advantage over both the middle route and the top route. However, it also has one real big disadvantage over those two routes as well. So let's kind of talk about what the advantages are. The advantage for this route is it's always very quiet. Every time I do this route, I'm actually blown away by just how few cars you see on it. It really is that quiet. And what that means is that it's a relatively stress-free journey no matter what time of day you do it at. Yes, you're going to hit a couple of population centres at Reims and Metz, but the road never gets that busy through those sections. So you really don't have to worry too much about hitting traffic on this route. I'm saying that, but you might run into some. But generally, every time I've done it, it's always a relatively straightforward drive through. But that's also the big disadvantage for this route as well. It's a quiet drive because it's péage for 50% of the journey. So you are going to have to pay to use these roads. That's going to come in at between about 50 and 60 euros to get you to Strasbourg, where you pick up the German motorway network. So just be prepared for that. It's worth getting an Amovis tag if you're going this route, because it just means that you're going to blast through those toll booths a lot quicker and a lot smoother. And to be honest, especially around Reims, it's those toll booths were the only place you're going to probably hit a little bit of traffic. With the Amovis tag, you can just bypass that traffic and go straight through the tag gates, and it just makes the whole journey a lot easier and a lot quicker. Now, although you're actually going to pay for using the motorways on here, if you're splitting this journey into two, and you're looking at staying around about half distance, you can pick up accommodation a lot cheaper than going the other routes. So what you're saving in that accommodation is probably more than going to offset the costs, the cost savings that you'll kind of make going the other routes. So that's worth considering. There is also another kind of alternative route that blends the two routes, but I'll come to that at the end so you can see. And that route's really good if you do want to save a fair bit of money. So just running through the bottom route first, let's kind of go into a little bit more detail. So you're going to come in at Calais. Now, the beauty of this journey here is the A26 runs straight out the ferry port. So you're straight onto the road that you need to be. So you're going to come out of the ferry terminal and you're just going to follow the signs for Reims. It's well signposted and you can't really miss it. Now, the first part of this journey is toll-free, so you need not worry about that. You're going to hit the first péage gate just a little bit south of Calais. And then really from that péage, it is a straightforward drive all the way through to Reims. You're probably looking like 3 hours probably to Reims. I will say though, it is mind-numbingly boring, this section of road here. It just runs you through industrial farmland of France. And there's not a lot to see. It's pretty flat. As I say, it's mind-numbingly boring. When you get to Reims, it is a little bit better. So there really is nothing to do on this section here. Just aim for Reims. Very little to look at, very little to worry about because, as I say, it's relatively quiet. When you come into Reims, you're just going to hit the bypass around here, and you're looking for signs that are going to take you to Troyes and to Metz. You're not heading to Troyes, but that's the motorway you want to take out of Reims. Again, as you hit Reims, you're going to come to the end of the péage, so you've got a few miles of non-péage around here, and then just as you come out of Reims, you're going to pick up the péage again. So, like I said, you're going to follow the signs for Troyes and Metz. So basically you just want to get out of there, and once you're on this A4, you are just aiming solidly for Metz. You're going to go past the exit for Troyes, ignore that, and just head towards Metz. As you can see here, this is where the road divides. You're going to take the A26 if you head into the southern French Alps, but you're going to stay on the A4 around here. And you're just going to follow that A4 really all the way to Strasbourg. It does actually get quite a bit more scenic around this area here, so that's worth looking at. If you are wanting to stay overnight and split the journey into two, this is kind of the region you want to be looking at. Really from Metz to Strasbourg. There's a lot of hotel choices here. Probably your best place to look on this is if you go to the all.accor.com hotel website, and you type in Saverne. It's just going to give you a lot of hotels in this area, and you're really looking between 40 and 120 euros a night. So you can have it super cheap, but if you want to do it a little bit nicer, there are also a few options there. Now, the beauty of staying in this area here is that it's just a straight 5-hour drive from Strasbourg. So if you want to get on the slopes in the afternoon, if you do an early morning start, you can get that last bit of the journey out of the way and really be on the slopes for midday, 1 o'clock. So it is quite a good place to look at staying. Okay, so we're kind of going to come through here and then we get to Strasbourg. I'm going to zoom in on this because there's just a little bit of an issue here. This is kind of sending you down here on the map, but I think it's just because this junction is closed on this live map feed here. But what you're generally going to do, you're going to come onto the A4, and then there's like a junction here that's going to take you onto the A35. You don't have to do this double back down and stuff like that, but you're going to come off here and then you go onto the A35 and you're just going to sit on this for a few miles. I think it's probably about 10 miles at maximum. And then you're going to be looking for the signposts for Iffersheim and Baden-Baden. You're going to come off this auto route and then you're into an A road, and that A road is just going to cross over the Rhine. You go over a big kind of dam at this point here. You're going to go through Eversenheim, and then you're going to pick up the motorway again. So you're now in Germany. So the Rhine is the border between France and Germany. So then you're going to pick up this motorway, the 5, that is then going to take you to Pforzheim and to Stuttgart. So really what's happening here, this is just dropping you back onto that German autobahn that you hit in the middle route. I'd say once you're past this section here, you're then into that de-restricted autobahn, so you really can cover some distance and get some miles here. What I will say, and you can see this on the live feed, if you're doing that early morning start, just be a little bit wary of traffic around Stuttgart. As you can see here on this live feed, it is starting to back up a little bit here. This is with an early morning start, probably the only place you're going to really encounter any traffic if you're kind of trying to get to the slopes for midday. So just be a little bit wary of that. Then as you come down, you're following the road from Stuttgart and you're just really heading to Munich. You can also do that turn off at Ulm if you want to head out to the Arlberg region, but we'll kind of carry on as normal. So you're just going to follow this motorway all the way down to Munich. And again, as the same warning as I gave you before, just be a little bit wary of what time you hit Munich. This is always a really busy section of motorway, but traffic flows all right through the day. It's when you hit this area at rush hour that it becomes really problematic. So try to avoid hitting this area after 4 p.m. because it will grind to a halt. And like I said in the other videos here, if you do make any errors at this section, don't worry. If you just go into the middle of Munich, there's plenty of ring roads here. You're just going to follow the signs for Innsbruck and Salzburg, and it's just going to drop you back onto the motorway. So as you come around the ring road at Munich, again, look for those signs for Innsbruck and Salzburg, and it's going to take you to the right point. As you then come out of Munich, again, look for that stop to pick up your vignette for the Austrian motorway network. Right, then we also get to Rosenheim, same thing applies. You can go straight on towards the Salzburg region, or you hook a right to take yourself down to Innsbruck. Most people, as I said on the other videos, are going to end up down here. So that really is that bottom route. It's probably the simplest of all the routes to do because it's just a real straightforward drive. So really all you're looking for on signage is you're going to go from Calais, follow the signpost for Reims, then you're going to aim for Troyes and Metz. Once you're south of Reims, back onto the auto route, follow the signpost for Metz, then from Metz to Strasbourg. Then you're going to transfer from the A4 onto the A35, and you're going to follow the sign to Karlsruhe. Once you're on that A35, you're going to come off on the signposts for Baden-Baden and Ipsen, and then you're really just going to follow the signpost to Stuttgart and Munich. It is a really, really simple route and almost impossible to get lost. Okay, so as I said at the beginning of this section for the bottom route, there is another way of doing this if you want to save a little bit of money. And that's just really blending the two routes together. So what you would do on that route is you would do the first part of the middle route. So you're just going to follow this like Lille, Tournai, Mons, Charleroi, Namur, and down to Luxembourg. All this route is for free, so you're not going to have to pay to use these roads. You can then fuel up in Luxembourg and save a little bit of money. And then from Luxembourg, you can then aim towards Metz. And once you're at Metz, that is then going to drop you back onto that French péage system. But you've kind of pretty much lost all this section here. So you're only on this short section of péage. So, you know, that's not going to cost a great deal of money. It's probably going to be about 20 euros. But what that's also then going to give you is give you access to all these lower priced hotels that sit around this area here. So once you've taken into account your fuel saving by fueling up at Luxembourg and the costs for overnight accommodation in this area, it's probably going to be really, really cost effective to do it this way if you're after saving a little bit of money. Like I said, the big advantage of this whole route is that it's quiet through this section here. So if you're not bothered about spending a little bit more money, this is probably the route to go because it is the easiest and the least stressful route. So that's really all the key routes to drive from Calais to Austria. Pretty much all of those you're going to do in under 12 hours. This journey, if it takes longer than 12 hours, it's been a long journey. You can do it in 9. You can do it even less if you've got a fast car and you're driving at night. But if you really aim for about 10 hours from Calais to the resort, you're really not going to be that far off unless you hit any bad traffic or come across any accidents en route. So that's the routes to Austria. They're not stressful. They're all pretty easy and straightforward. Do a little bit of prep before you go. We're going to pop these routes online for you as well, so you can actually use those to plan your journey as well. And that's it. So on the next video, we're going to take a look at how you drive to the French Alps. So that's the Austrian routes. Thank you very much. So that's the Austrian section out of the way. Now, in this next section, we're going to concentrate a little bit more on accessing the French Alps. Now, as I'll talk about in the video, this section is a lot shorter than the Austrian section. And that's really down to the fact that, for me personally, there's only really one way to get to the French Alps. There is a route that uses A roads. I'm not really going to talk about that much because I don't really have that much experience of it. I tried it once about 20 odd years ago and it took me ages, so I've never really kind of gone that route again. So as I say, I'll talk about a little bit more in the kind of map video. Now there is one thing I will say for France. If you're driving through France, it really is worthwhile investing in one of these. This is an Amovis tag, and what this does is just gives you access to the toll booths without having to stop and kind of put money in them or put your card in. You just go through a tag gate on the toll booth, and this will automatically register that you've been through it and will open the barrier for you. It's going to save you a heck of a lot of time. You don't need to stop. And to be honest with you, when you get on those French péages, they're so quiet and so empty that the only places where you're going to get caught up in traffic is at the toll booths. And what you'll generally find with the Amovis tag, the tag only gates are a lot quieter, so the chances are you're probably just going to go straight through those gates without stopping. Cost wise, I think it's, when I got this, it was a £5, no, it was a £10 payment initially, and then every time you use this, it charges you €5 at the beginning of the month. So if you go in January, it will charge you a one-off payment of €5, and then it will charge you the toll booth payments. If you don't use it in March, it doesn't charge you. If you don't use it until next February, it won't charge you. So it only charges you at the start of the month when you use it. It's definitely worth having. It makes the journey so much easier. So that's out of the way. So let's now kind of switch to the map video, and I'll just kind of talk you through the route. To be honest with you, it's very simple, and it is very quick to get to the Alps from Calais. So if you're kind of in the south of the country, this is a journey that you can get out of the way very, very quickly. So I hope it's useful for you. Okay, what we're going to do now is just take a look at routes out to the French Alps. Primarily on this route, I'm really just going to focus on the main péage route, and the reason being, I've not really got that much experience of taking the A1 route. I did it once many years ago, and it took me forever. I think it took about 17 hours, so I kind of never ventured that way again. So I've not really got the experience to kind of give you any information on that route. If you're doing this journey overnight, it's probably going to be a lot quicker. As you can see on the signposts there, it's saying 8 hours 9 minutes against 7 hours 47. But bear in mind, a lot of that route is not as kind of empty and clear as the péage. So by all means use that route. It's going to save you a stack of cash if you do, because you're only on a little bit of péage there as well. So yeah, use that, I'd say, but I've not kind of got the experience to talk about that much. So really, I'm just going to run you through the péage route, because that's the route I always use when I kind of go to the French Alps. So cost-wise for the péage, it's going to come in at about €75 from Calais out to the Alps. So it's not cheap, but it is very quick, and it is very easy and a stress-free journey. So generally what you're going to do is you're going to come out of Calais, and literally within about 4 or 5 miles you're going to pick up on the péage. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, it's definitely worthwhile getting a tag if you are going to use the péage for any length of time. It saves you a lot of time. It means you're not constantly stopping and kind of hanging out the window. You can just drive straight through the péage booths, and it automatically registers your payment. So definitely worth getting one of those. So like I say, pretty much straight out of Calais, you're onto the péage. And it's really a straight road, pretty much all the way from the tunnel, all the way from the ferry to Reims. So that's basically where you're heading. So Calais, just follow the signpost for Reims, and it's going to get you there. This section of the journey is really boring. As I mentioned on the Austrian video, this is just really running through industrial farmland, so there's not a great deal to see. Once you're south of Reims, it does get a little bit more pleasant. So just zooming into Reims, the autoroute just really bypasses it. You've got a couple of changes that you need to make on this, but it's all really well signposted. When you get to Reims, just follow the signposts for Troyes, and that'll get you past really quickly and really easily. Traffic congestion is never really that much of an issue around Reims. I've kind of been through there in rush hour and never really encountered that much traffic. The only place I've ever really come across traffic here was in the summer once, and that was just a queue for the péage. And that's where the tag comes into play, because you don't have to queue with a lot of that traffic. You can just aim straight for the tag only barrier, and that's just going to get you through quite quickly. So pretty straightforward drive around Reims, and then once you're there, you're just going to follow the signposts for Troyes. And then it's just really, again, a simple, straightforward route down to Troyes. You're just going to have to fork off a little bit here. So just make sure you don't miss your exit. Because this side's going to go head off towards Metz. So just make sure you stay in the right lane to follow towards Troyes. You're generally talking about five hours, really, from Calais to Troyes. Maybe a little bit less if the route is clear. If you're looking for a place to stay over, this is really where I recommend. There's a few Formula Ones very close to the motorway if you want to do something cheap. If you want to do something a little bit more special and a little bit nicer, go into Troyes. There's lots of great hotels in that town. I will say, though, make sure you visit Troyes because it is a very special place. I'd been staying there for a long time and never ventured into the town centre. I always kind of thought it was just a bit of an outlet town because there's just lots of shop outlets. And then a few years back, I just kind of thought, let's go and find something to eat into the centre. And it really is a very, very special place indeed. It is beautiful medieval town. So if you're going to stay over anywhere on this journey, stay over in Troyes. And pay a visit to the city centre. It's well worthwhile. It's very special. So when you've come out of Troyes, you're really just then heading the motorway down to Dijon. This is a really nice, pleasant part of autoroute. It's very quick and it's very relaxing, really. It's quite a nice bit of journey. Right, when you get to Dijon, you will then start to pick up the signs for Geneva. So really just take that top fork onto the A39 and that's going to start to run you into the Alps, really. So that's kind of where things start to pick up and it gets a little bit higher, just kind of south of Bourg-en-Bresse. Again, all you're really doing on this part of the journey is following the signposts for Geneva. It's so well signposted that you can't really go wrong. Okay, so then when you get to Geneva, this is where the road forks. So if you're heading out towards Chamonix and to that part of the Alps, you're just going to stay on this road onto the A40. It's signposted to Chamonix, so you can't really go wrong. From this section here, this is where you're going to access the likes of like Morzine, Leger, Avoriaz, and all those kind of roads. So as you can see here, they're all sitting in this kind of section of the Alps. You can carry on down here. That's going to take you to Chamonix, and you're pretty much going to run motorway all the way into Chamonix city centre, pretty much. If you're heading towards Tignes, Val d'Isère, Les Arcs, Bourg-Saint-Maurice, you're going to fork off here and follow the road down to Annecy. And then from Annecy, you're just going to head to Chambray, and then you're going to access up into there. So you'll pretty much follow the signs from Chambray to Albertville, and then really just kind of look for Moutier and Bourg-Saint-Maurice. This bit of journey takes a little bit of time. It's a good couple of hours from Annecy to Bourg-Saint-Maurice. So just kind of bear that in mind in terms of your timing. But it's well signposted. It's auto route all of the way pretty much up to Moutier. So it's a quick and an easy journey, really. And that's it. France is really simple. I remember the first time I did it, after years of driving to Austria, just how quick it seemed to take to get there. So of all the journeys, this is probably the least stressful. So don't be afraid to get in the car and do it. And that's really it, really, in terms of looking at the map there. And I kind of hope both France and Austria have just shown how simple and easy it is to do those journeys. Yeah, it's a long time in the car, but it's a really simple journey. It's super simple if you split it in half as well, and it just makes the whole thing a lot more pleasant. So I hope these maps have kind of put your mind at rest and kind of given you an idea that it is something that is worthwhile to do. So that's that's this video really done. I hope you found it useful. To be honest with you, you may have other routes that you take, or if you've done this journey a fair bit, there's certain points and routes that you go that don't tie up with my routes. I really just made this based on my experiences of doing this journey over the 35 years. So I hope there's some tips that you've picked up from there that will really just help you if you're used to it, but if you've not done this journey before, just to put your mind at ease that it really is super simple. I will generally always prefer driving out to the Alps than flying. I'm used to that journey now, and it really it's simple. So I hope it's helped. If you've liked this video, please like it. Please subscribe to our channel as well. I'm also going to do a few more of these videos. We're going to do one based around Scottish resorts. I'm going to head up next week to all the Scottish ski resorts. Yeah, it's springtime, so there's going to be no snow there, but we're just going to talk about the routes, how to get there, places to stay in and around those Scottish ski areas, and just give you a little overview of the lift systems there and what you can expect from Scottish snowboarding. So we'll see you on the next videos.